Recently, I had a full-on disagreement with my mom who was really into Squid Game because we had very different opinions on the ending. Hers is that the ending was, well, horrible. Incredibly unsatisfying and absolutely nothing important happened, to get specific about it. And to that I said... And when I went on Reddit to see what other people were saying, I was floored by the number of people who not only agreed with her, but said the final season is full of blatantly bad writing. Most people push the points, we didn't want a happy ending, we meant a good ending. You can't kill your main character. Everything Gi-hun did was meaningless. But what is a good ending versus a happy ending? Who says killing your MC isn't the right move? Why, because a deadbeat dad, an ex-police officer, and a band of loan sharks turned wannabe vigilantes didn't take out the frontmen and the VIPs, does that mean none of it mattered? Give me just a few minutes or so, and I can change your mind. Or at least convince you that the story wasn't about taking down the games. It was about one man proving that even in a rigged world, we still have the power to choose who we are. And maybe that was exactly the ending that he needed. Let me just get this out of the way. Squid Game is not perfect. And I'm not calling it a masterpiece either. I lived in Korea for over 6 years, before that Japan, and I was a major Hunger Games fan. I'm no stranger to the concept of dystopian entertainment where people kill each other for money. Kaiji, Battle Royale, Liar Game, Hunger Games, and even the 1987 film The Running Man starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know this genre. I've got many gripes with Squid Games, not fully fleshing out the purpose of multiple characters' backgrounds and motivations, wasted plot lines, the VIPs being cartoonishly bad, but the ending, that's not one of them. You're probably thinking, well, if the story is flawed, the ending has to be too. You can't expect trash to turn into gold. Yeah, I know. So first, let's address the complaint I've seen most. Gi-hun deserved a happy ending. Did he? And okay, define good. Because I keep hearing people go on the defensive with, we don't mean fairy tale happy, just satisfying. Right, good endings are earned. As anyone who has taken a creative writing class or watched Brandon Sanderson's lectures on promise and payoff already knows. But here's the problem. Squid Game's ending has payoff. It just didn't give people what they thought it promised. Part of this is Netflix's fault, splitting season 2 into 2 seasons, thereby dragging it out while not having enough episodes to fully present the ending's promise, and the ending being more of an artistic choice than a commercial one, with an easily digestible resolution. According to Hwang Dong-hyuk, the series creator, this second reason was intentional. He wanted to end the series with the question, what are we? Or put another way, how do we measure the value of a life? Most people judge by impact. Did Gi-hun change the world? No, then it wasn't satisfying. It's true that as a creator, you have a responsibility to deliver what you promise your audience, and I think that's where the disconnect comes in. Most people judge endings by what characters achieve in the world. Did they achieve widely impactful change? Did the villain die? However, to judge Squid Game in this way is to overlook a fundamental aspect of Korean society into which Hwang and Gi-hun were born. The lie that is told to so many. The more one studies and works, the more they can succeed. It's a cliche, but the eagerness to own material possessions or have a job that others can look upon with envy at some point whittles away your humanity until there's nothing left but a hollow desire to achieve for the sake of looking like you've got your shit together. Who cares that Koreans have some of the highest household debt in the world and the highest suicide rate among all first world countries? All that matters is how others see you. So when Gi-hun chooses to die rather than live as a winner who compromises his humanity, he's rejecting that lie. With this in mind, the show never promised a massive revolution. It promised to explore whether one person could resist being reduced into an animal, whether someone could choose their conscience over self-preservation in a system designed to strip them of both. Honestly, I couldn't care less about a happy ending. Keep me sad, keep me angry, make me feel something beyond, "Aw, the guy who would rather steal from his mother to bet on horses than take care of his daughter took down a crime ring and lived happily ever after." Because the exploitation of the poor and needy does happen. It turns those who feel invisible and mistreated into a weapon against each other for the rich who sit back comfortably and watch the show. Can media be an outlet for experiencing a kinder world where good things happen to good people? Sure, but good things don't always happen to good people. Bad guys don't always get their karma. That's why I hate happy endings. They are fantasy beyond fantasy. I don't want to forget what the world is, and I believe true positivity and hope are enduring despite all the crap life puts you through, and knowing that when you leave this world, it will be better just because you were in it. So if you're still asking why the ending felt like a slap in the face, I'd argue it should've. A good ending fits the story's soul, and Squid Game's soul has always been bleak but honest. Hwang himself changed his original ending from Gi-hun's survival because, well, survival isn't always a win. Sometimes it's a cop-out. So think about what the idealized alternative would have been. Gi-hun surviving and walking away with both the baby and his life. Would that have been earned after watching him fail to save hundreds of people? Would it have been satisfying if the show's entire premise is that winning the game is actually losing? Would it have been appropriate for a series that spent 3 seasons proving that the only real win within our power is to reject manipulation by higher powers? Which brings me to my next point. Gi-hun's dying was always the ending. Now, I don't mean Hwang set out to kill his main character. Quite the opposite, actually. But as he wrote Season 2, he realized survival wasn't an option. When Gi-hun first showed up at the games in Season 1, he still had his daughter and an elderly mother who needed expensive treatment. Unfortunately, after his daughter moved overseas and his mother passed away, Gi-hun had nothing but his prize money. Money he saw as blood money. The only thing that drove him in Season 2 was his quest for revenge against the game's creators and organizers. To his and our dismay, the frontman even took that away from him by stopping his rebellion and killing his friend Jungbae. As a result, Gi-hun had no purpose in Squid Game Season 3's initial moments, which is connected to something I've heard a lot. The ending was meaningless. To this I say, Season 1 ends with a meaningless victory. Season 2 ends with a meaningless uprising. It would have strayed from the story's purpose for the good guys to win in Season 3, but it had to end with meaning. Similarly, another complaint I've seen is that if Gi-hun had to die, it needed to be for something more impactful, but like what? He's not John Wick. PTSD already had him walking around dead inside. Not even horses run free and happy when they've experienced trauma, yet people expect this man to walk away from seeing hundreds of people die and just keep fighting the good fight? He's just a person. Gi-hun's death is really the only thing within his power. The right to live your life in the way you choose is what ultimately signifies that your life is your single inalienable possession. What really would have been the point of surviving? He doesn't need money anymore, his daughter is thriving, his mother is dead, and his years-long search to bring down the games only pulled back the skin on how deep the games actually run. He's already tried and failed to change that outcome. But his sacrifice saved one life at least, and that gave his struggle meaning. The point of the show is that our choices, no matter how trivial to others, matter because they reflect our power of choice. Gi-hun's decision in the end, to me, was the ultimate display of his autonomy that proved he could be tortured, made to dance and entertain, but he died with dignity, knowing it was his choice to do so. It proved that there is always a choice, and if one person can make it, anyone can for the greater good. We are not slaves. We can be free from shame even if no one ever witnesses the good that we do in the world. Even if Gi-hun had survived Season 3, I think his arc still would have divided people. In previous seasons, Gi-hun's narrative was all about his selfish desire to either earn a grand prize or exact revenge on those who wronged him. Everything he's done before this, the horse betting, choosing to use all his money to find the recruiter over going to his daughter, getting back into the games, big speeches to bring everyone together to vote and stop the games, his failed rebellion, are big. Gi-hun is all or nothing. That's who he is. Towards the end of Squid Game Season 3, however, he finally gives up on loud displays and for once thinks about the small actions to take for the greater good. When Hwang was asked about what some Redditors have called the original ending, he admitted he only had a vague idea of Gi-hun's survival. What made Hwang decide to kill him off was asking himself, what kind of sacrifices do we need to make in the current generation for us to be able to leave the future generation with a better world? This calls back to something Hwang had actually said about Season 2. It's not something that's absolute, but to call ourselves human, we have to be true to our conscience, and when we are not, we have to be able to feel shame. In terms of personal story, Gi-hun won. He did what the front man when he participated in his original game couldn't. Gi-hun died freely by his own choice when the option of survival was entirely open to him. showcasing that not everyone can be corrupted by money or self-preservation. His final choice proved he had learned from his mistakes and refused to let the frontman manipulate him into becoming someone else. Gi-hun's sacrifice allowed him to die true to himself, free of shame. So, what are we? That's the unfinished thought Squid Game ends on, and the one people keep trying to answer for Gi-hun. Did he win because he changed the frontman? Did he lose because he died? Did any of it matter? And that brings us to a line from Season 1 where the frontman, congratulating Gi-hun on his victory, explains the game's purpose. You people are horses. Horses at a racetrack. Think of us as a dream. It wasn't a bad dream for you, anyway. To the frontman, the deaths, including those of the defenseless people he killed during his own game, are justifiable. The trauma, according to him, should mean nothing to Gi-hun because he's the one still alive and richer than he could have ever imagined. That's why the frontman kept trying to convince Gi-hun to give up looking for the games. It should be easy to look the other way when you're the winner. But he refuses to believe that when Gi-hun looks at the money, he sees his dead friends, or some pity prize for a damaged horse who barely managed to outrun the rest. Now, we really shouldn't put too much of the outcome on Gi-hun's goodness. He does want to help people, sure, but this was never about him being the kindest or the smartest. It was about freedom, about the right way to live and to die in a way that meant something to him. Hwang said of concluding Gi-hun's unfinished story, he thought about the Matrix, where Neo is given the option of the red or blue pill. He could have accepted the life presented to him and just lived happily ever after, but like Neo, Gi-hun refused. That's what makes his sacrifice unique. People complain that his death wasn't earned, that others were more deserving of a main character sacrifice. Hyunju, whom I absolutely bawled over, or Gumja, who killed her son to save Junhee and her baby. And yes, those people are probably better human beings, but they didn't escape the meat grinder with millions of blood money and choose to come back. They didn't sacrifice their life after being handed money, freedom, and comfort. Gi-hun did. And here's a contrast that really gets me. In that final game, we see the perfect foil when player 333 was willing to kill his own daughter for money. Same situation, opposite choices. That's the entire show right there. People keep saying Gi-hun didn't change anything, that he didn't take down the games or the system, but he never was going to. No one was. Not the frontman, not his brother, not the rebellion. The truth is, change doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't look like a single hero taking down the system. Furthermore, the story was never about bringing down the system. It was about whether one person could still choose mercy when it would cost them everything. Gi-hun didn't shoot down the villain in a blaze of glory. He didn't save the world. He saved one life. Unlike how some people and even the creator claim, we don't know if this changed the frontman. Sure, he could have done anything with that baby, but chose to give it to his brother. He could have been in LA to continue the games, or just to see Gi-hun's daughter. The uncertainty is the point, which reflects that the only way we can change a system is to slowly, over time, change the way that others think. There aren't any Avengers-esque fights or John Wick takedowns. It happens because of the smallest sacrifices that some people will probably never know about. And if you're still not satisfied, ask yourself this. Would it really have felt more complete to watch Gi-hun walk away with a baby in one hand and another suitcase of cash in the other? Would that have felt honest? If the detective arrived in time to save him, the baby, and take out the VIPs, is it really hard to imagine that there isn't just another group out there who will continue the games because they think they're too smart or rich for it to happen to them? No, because Squid Game never lied to us. That promise I mentioned before, that if you work hard, if you have enough willpower, everything will work out, was the lie. Which is why taking down the games was always a fool's errand, though an admirable one. Squid Game promised to show us what people are, and what people should be. That final line of Gi-hun's, "We are not horses," is a thread woven through the show. The purpose of the games was to treat people like horses at the track. Beasts to be molded, broken, bet on, and disposed of. While this may have offered potential for a protagonist to pull himself up from his lowest point, the show was realistic in showcasing how immovable the evil done by those in power is. Some actions can only alter us on a personal level. They don't affect society as a whole. As members of society, sometimes all we can hope to do with our actions is to enact change in others. One domino topples the line. So we're not owed an ending that makes us feel happy, because a happy ending is either an unfinished story or unrealistic. A good ending keeps you asking the same question Gi-hun never finished. People are... Well, what are we? Squid Game doesn't answer that for us. It just gives us the quiet, brutal space to decide what kind of person we want to be when no one is watching. That's why Gi-hun had to die. That's why the ending works. And that's why happy endings are overrated. If you made it this far, hey, thanks for sitting with me through the messy, uncomfortable stuff stories can leave behind. And when a story ends and you're left wondering what it meant, ditto. That's why I'm Pickle Ditto, because whatever storytelling pickle you're in, I've probably been there too.